I'm Jacob Muldowney, Assistant Professor of Art at Chowan University.
My name is Ryan Muldowney. I'm Assistant Professor of Studio Art at Tidewater Community College Visual Arts Center.
Welcome to our show, The Brothers Muldowney.
Yes. I know that when I introduced her,
Okay, it is.
My inspiration for the work in this show, revolves around this notion of the exploration of formula, and is there sort of room within a narrow bandwidth of expression to uncover new territory?
So I guess the area I'm interested in or inspired by in the works of this show is the idea of thresholds. The idea of spaces that reside between spaces, and chiefly I'm interested in the idea of the human perceptual experience, how we see things as sort of the threshold between ourselves, our interior selves, our psychological selves, and the physical world.
All right, so the idea behind this show was this notion that, my brother Jacob and I, come from sort of a large artistic family. Our father's a painter, and this notion that, two artists growing up under the same roof, what intersections might there be in their work, coming from such common ground, but ultimately, what differences, maybe more importantly, what differences might there be in the work, in spite of the common ground that we share, I guess.
So many people, when looking at my work, sort of ask, what do the titles have to do with anything? Is there any way that the titles shed light on the meaning of the work, etc.? In my case, with my work, I have sort of intentionally used titling that is difficult to grasp immediately, because I want the viewer to. I don't want the work to be immediately accessible to the viewer. I want the viewer, in order to sort of fully appreciate what I'm doing, I want them to have to put a certain level of work into research.
One of the things about the holy men that's interesting to me is that there's a great deal of sort of suffering associated with being a holy man in almost every tradition, and so in some ways I identify with that. Being an artist is this sort of weird experience, this weird sort of internal hermetical kind of constantly in meditation, constantly pondering, constantly cogitating and thinking about ways to sort of improve and better yourself. And I think that sort of experience of being an artist has a lot of interesting parallels to the life of the holy man. The aloneness, the potential darkness or depression associated with being an outcast, those sorts of things. Not that I feel like I'm a total outcast, I'm just a social outcast mainly. So that's where the holy men comes from. The other things are sort of related in some ways. They have sort of religious significance, but the fowls, fish, and beast are sort of part of the creation. So as an artist, you sort of take your cues in some ways from being a creator yourself. And so these are sort of references to sort of, the act of painting for me is sort of a religious act in some ways.
A couple of works of mine in the show specifically that I'd like to talk about are the two doorway pieces. The larger one, it's a double French door. It's called Through a Glass Darkly. And then the other one, which is actually a portrait of my wife in front of a door, is titled Muldowney. Now, okay, so Through a Glass Darkly is a direct reference to the New Testament of the Bible. It's the Apostle Paul referring to the human experience. It's sort of like seeing through a glass darkly, or in a glass darkly. So how does this relate to my interest in human perception? Well, human perception is fundamentally flawed. We think we see everything, we think we understand things, we see it with our eyes, but that's simply not the case. We all have sort of limitations of what we can see, right? There's stuff out there that exists, wavelengths of information that we are not able to perceive with any of our senses. So that's sort of pointing to that sort of limitation of the human perception. And the other one, the title Valerius, refers to sort of a rank of servant that would have been in Roman households. So Roman households, from my research, were often divided into rooms with veils. They didn't have actual walls to divide up the space into rooms, but they actually have curtains set up. And a Valerius refers to someone who's basically a doorman. It was their job to open the curtain when whoever owned the house decided to go through. So there's this again a tie between the work and the title and the idea of thresholds. And with my wife, this is the mother of my 3 beautiful daughters. There's this idea of her being the one who sort of introduces new life into the world by opening that veil, by opening that threshold to allow someone, to allow a being to enter into this world.
Yeah, so where I see my work sort of going, or I guess evolving from here, is, subject, in the context of the show, the subjects are not necessarily really critical to the outcome. It's more about the sort of process. And I see my work continuing to do that, examining various processes. But I like this notion of applying this idea of interruption, this sort of formulaic interruption to, future paintings. Right now it's sort of contained by sort of the limitations of, a single color with a sort of tonal response, and sort of mixing it with color or multiple sort of color interruptions with full color images is definitely something I can see this work, examining in the future.
Yeah, so where do I go from here? I've done a lot of very similar imagery, doorway imagery, windows, things like that, and I'm interested in sort of expanding my vocabulary in terms of what constitutes a threshold. Some of the ideas I'm kicking around relate to sort of the largest threshold, the largest passageway, which is sort of the threshold between life and death. Thank you everyone for coming out and seeing the show. It's going to be up until March 23rd.